Who's at the Table is an engaging show for the audience to hear the courageous stories of women veterans. Often, women veterans aren't asked to be in boardroom discussions, but we deserve to be at the table. Business leaders should want us there because we are innovators, creators, entrepreneurs, critical thinkers, mission-driven, and vital to their success.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Who's at the Table. My name is Sharissa Jackson, and I am your host and creator of the Who's at the Table interview series. It's about time that the community knows about women veterans and to hear our stories. Our stories are powerful. Our stories are impactful, and we're here to empower other women veterans along the way. Our stories need to be heard, and we deserve to be at the table. And for those lawmakers and those decision makers that don't have women veterans at the table, we deserve to be there. I'm so excited for our guest today. Her name is none other than Ms. Lakeydra Houston. She is an Air Force active duty member. Welcome, Lakeydra, to the show. I appreciate you being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be at the table.
Absolutely. And I'm excited that you are here at the table. I'm excited that you are also an Air Force active duty member. As you know, I was Air Force as well. And so tell me, who are you and why do you deserve to be here at the table?
So I'm Lakeydra Houston. I have been in the Air Force for 18 years.
Whoa.
Yes, 18 years. So 2 more years I retired. Came in the Air Force from a little town outside of Texas and wanted to do something different because the area I was in was known for drugs and, the kids were partying and just a negative environment for me. So I decided to come in the military and, grow and learn and develop into somebody, better than what was around me. So came into the Air Force, been all over the world, started off as a cop. And then later, my last 6 years, I have been a recruiter. So now it's all about recruiting, getting people in. But the good thing about, you talk about why I deserve to be at the table is because within 6 months of me being in the military, I was sexually assaulted by a leader. And this was somebody in my chain of command that as soon as I got off the plane and met everybody, he was the first one that just kind of leaped and, was drawn to me. And as a new airman, you're not understanding, maybe he's just excited. Maybe I'm just a good person. Maybe I have a good personality. Because as you know, I'm a little bubbly. So I didn't understand what his intentions were. So, of course, he called me in his office and, we had to make sure our uniform is good. And he started caressing my breast. And for me, I didn't know how to take it. I was like, pushing you off or getting away from you. And I ran out his office and there was a girl there and she's told me, she was like, if you say something, your career is going to end. Mm. Exactly. And I later found out she was a victim as well. Mm. It was something that kind of like, whoa, this Air Force thing, like I'm thinking we're supposed to, be here and protect each other. Like, what is this? So it changed my mindset. So I started drinking, partying, just forgetting who I was as a person. The morals that you have, growing up, you forget about all those because you're hurt. Mm-hmm. And you're trying to figure yourself out mm-hmm. and figure out how to get through this every day. Mm-hmm. So as a woman, you kind of suppress them because now I'm getting up in the ranks and I'm learning leadership, roles and things like that. And it led me to a point where everything kind of just came back at once, just randomly. Mm-hmm. And I think I suppressed it for a good 7 years and it came back out the blue. Mm-hmm. And I decided to take my life that day. And so I was like, I don't want to be here anymore. I have, this going on. I was a single mother going through divorce. Like it was a lot going on my table. And I just decided I couldn't do it anymore. Thank goodness my ex-husband at the time, he came in there when I was pulling the trigger, came and grabbed the gun from my hand. Like he came within seconds and I was about to kill myself. And I'm like, this is a sign to tell me that I have to keep pushing. I have a son here. And at that moment I was selfish. I didn't care about my child. Mm-hmm. And that's sad to say, but when you're so depressed, you don't care. So my story is to tell other women who go through that, like, we're here for you. It's okay. I didn't have a woman mentor. I had men. And I was still traumatized by that man. But what happened to the women? Why aren't we coming together? So I feel like we need to bring that as women, help each other, empower each other, and uplift each other. So that's why I think that, I should be at the table.
Thank you. For sharing that. That's such a powerful story. And
mm-hmm.
It's one of those things where when I came into the Air Force, I was 17 years old. My parents had to sign for me to come in. I was that young. I came from a little town, had about 2,100 people. Nothing good came out of that town. And so for me to be naive and gullible coming into the military, I thought the military was going to be safe. So I feel you when you think, you said, I came in and the military was the thing that I was going to do to get away from my town. I think a lot of us think about the military in that way, that it's a safe haven for us to come in and feel protected. So what made you decide to do the Air Force? There's other branches that you could have chosen. Why the Air Force?
Because all my family was Army, and they're like, don't go Army. I felt like it was more for females, and that's probably bad, but you're 19, you're trying to figure out what you want to do, but it was more female friendly to me. And then I was interested in, aircraft and those things. So I thought it was pretty cool. So that kind of drove me into the Air Force.
Okay. And I think a lot of people shared those same thoughts. I came in because I didn't want my parents to have to pay for school for me. And I saw them go through financial hardships trying to take care of all of my older siblings, 3 of them, as a matter of fact, in college. And so this was a way for me to get my college paid for.
Right.
So we all come in for different reasons at different times and different stages in our lives. But let's go back to your story for a minute, because I feel that there's a lot there. In particular, as we're talking about military sexual trauma, you're young, you're impressionable. This was your first leader that you encountered, and he did that assault to you. And to have that female veteran, that other female, say to you those words, how did that impact your life?
Wow, it made me feel like it was my fault. Like it was, okay, he's doing it. I must have done something to cause this. So it's sad to say that she even felt the same way. Like she was outside picking rocks and stuff like that and doing duties because nobody believed her. So it was like, why should I say anything? Nobody's going to believe me. And, it just made me feel like I had nobody to turn to. You know what I mean? So it was just a different heavy feeling, but I knew I had to stay in because I didn't want to go back to my situation. So I was like, maybe this is better, staying here than going back home and dealing with those things at home.
And so you found those negative coping mechanisms that we all kind of go down the road with alcohol and, like you say, partying and things of those things, just trying to cope with the assault. And so did you confide in anyone else besides that other airman that you came into contact with, or you just kind of bottled it up inside?
So it's interesting you say that. There was a lady, and I have been trying to find her forever, and she was our assistant first sergeant about a year and a half after this happened. And she came to me and she was like, you need help. And it was very quick. She said, you need help, and I'm going to get you orders to somewhere else. And I'm like, okay. So I got orders to Korea, but that didn't help. It was like, you get orders somewhere else, but the pain is still there. I didn't know anything about therapy. I didn't know anything. So I just continued drinking in Korea. And so it was nobody really to help me until I was suicidal. That's when somebody helped me. But it's sad to say during those times, people see your triggers and they don't pay attention to you. And you want help, but you're like, I don't know how to ask. So it was nobody really helped me until like towards the end. And so that's sad to say.
Yeah, that's very sad to say. And you spoke about triggers, and I think that's important that we put that kind of caveat in those conversations, because the last thing we want to do is trigger anyone that is watching this show today, that they may get triggered. Just know that if you are triggered by this conversation, there is help out here. Unlike what Lakeydra experienced, that you do have an army, forgive the pun, of women out here that would be able to support you. And I'm so sorry, Lakeydra, that you didn't have that support system around you, because you're not too far off from me. You have 18 years in the military right now. I retired after 23 years, so you're a little shy off from me. So look at the difference in the times, because I had a female mentor and I had a female non-commissioned officer that carried me along, and those women protected me. And I tell people all the time, it was by the grace of God that I got through some of the things I got through, because they made sure I stayed on track. And so when I hear women veteran stories like yours and others, I'm always concerned about, where were those women, like the women that took care of me? I mean, was there a like you said, that woman that you're trying to find, where were they after your encounter? Could you not find them, or were they not part of your unit? Where were those women veterans?
Yeah, they weren't in the unit. And the women that we had, they already had a circle. And it was like, you're reaching out saying, hey, ma'am, I have a question. Like, how can I get there? And a lot of them, being a cop, it was more like, you got to suck it up. You know, those things you hear, even with the Vanessa situation where that officer said that, those were the things that I heard. You're in a man's military. You got to suck it up. You got to do your job. So you don't know how to cope with that. You know, you can't talk to anybody. So you find ways to cope. And it took me years, but there was nobody. And the person that saved my life was a male. And I was so afraid to even talk to him, but he pulled me in and he said, I see you. And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, I see you. And I didn't understand what that meant. And he still talks to me to this day. And he was like, I saw how you were just walking around. You just looked like you were just lost and you were a zombie and you weren't this fun loving person that I thought you were. He was like, you were different, but the women were walking by me, not saying anything to me. And I didn't have women, you know, for some reason, I will be honest, women, we compete with each other instead of empower each other. And as a cop, you see that majority of the time. If you're not drinking and party with them consistently, then you don't have any room for their circle, you know? So that was me. I wanted to get better, you know, but nobody was there to guide me or help me. So this male came in and he took over, and I prayed. I was like, God, if you're real, please send somebody to me. Like, if this is real. And then he came in, and it was just different from then. So him and his wife have been like helping me throughout like my career. So it's really good.
Man, that is awesome. And so after your encounter with the leader that assaulted you, did you have other instances or circumstances where you guys were in each other's presence again? Or was it a one-time deal where it happened and then you never saw him again?
So we were in each other's presence about probably 2 more times. And everybody saw my reaction to it. And it's funny. I'm going to share this story. And I think you're probably one of the few that I told this to. But after in process, you know, you get your gun and you meet everybody else on your flight. They looked at me and they said, hey, did you run across Sergeant so-and-so? And I'm like, yeah. They were like, he must have touched you too. So it was a joke amongst everybody. It was a joke. So everybody knew about it. Men, everybody knew. So I saw him again. He came to our guard mount and talked to us. And I saw him a second time when we had a airman commit suicide. And then that's when I was like, okay, I can't see this man anymore. And then I think he retired or something happened, but he was gone. So.
Wow. And so how did you feel? I can only imagine having to see him 2 other times. Maybe your hands got clammy. Maybe you felt like your heart was palpitating really, really fast.
Yes.
How did you feel when you saw him? Did you just want to run in the opposite direction? Or did you want to just punch him in the gut? I mean, what was your thoughts when you saw him that second and that third time?
So the second time I saw him, it was more like hurt. Like I was like, why did you do this? Like, and then the last time I saw him, it was more like, I want to jump him and I want to beat him up and I want him to feel like how he made me feel. And it's even to this day, the smell of the cologne, the smell of different things that remind me of him. Like I still have issues, you know, your clammy skin, you just like, you're tight, everything is like, you just lose sight of everything. You just go back to that again. It just keeps on playing in your head. Yeah. So yeah, you have to know your triggers and you have to be careful. Yeah, it's a mess. It's something I still fight with to this day.
Yeah, and I appreciate you sharing because you're definitely helping other women by telling your story. And it's just unfortunate because from what you're telling us, it's kind of like you have experienced post-traumatic stress. If that smell is a trigger, if certain things about that encounter is a trigger, have you ever been diagnosed with post-traumatic stress?
So a lady talked to me about 2 years ago and said, I think you have this. And I didn't think anything of it because I thought we're not really trained on PTSD. That's the problem. In active duty, it seems like, PTSD is related to deployments. So I didn't understand what it was until later on. But I have talked to a woman about it. They gave me medicine, but I don't want medicine. I want to face it. You know, I want to claim my life back without being medicated, if that makes sense. So I've been, talking to someone about it. But yes, I've been diagnosed now. I have, after 2 years ago.
Yeah. And I think that's important, that once you understand, like you said, you're very astute to your triggers. You know what happens if you hear a certain sound or a smell, you go back to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
But you know also how to get through it, because you wouldn't be here talking to me today.
Correct.
But there's something very unfortunate about your story that hurts my heart. And there's the fact that it was a guy, a male, that actually helped you along the way compared to women veterans. And we see it all the time. Why don't we pull each other up? Why
Yes.
did it have to be another guy that pulled you up? Because he could have been your trigger. And thank God you were open enough to him helping you. Because
Mm-hmm.
had you not, no, it's just hard to kind of think about what could have happened to you had you not received the help that he was looking to give you. So
Correct.
walk me down that path, and why did you decide to allow him to help you?
So it's weird to say this, but the first thing he did was left the door open.
Okay.
And my previous one, he did not, the guy who did this to me, he did not have the door. He would close the door. And I'm like, something's not right about this.
Mm-hmm.
But he left the door open, and he told me to stand across the room, because he knew something was, he said, I'm a male, you're a female. I want you to feel comfortable. So he put me in a comfortable space. And then he asked me if I want a female sergeant there. Mm-hmm. And I didn't, because I didn't trust any females in the unit. I would hear little smart things. Oh, she thinks she's better than us, or she thinks, it was just a unit where crabs getting at the top of the bucket. We're trying to advance. We're trying to promote. We're not worried about helping each other personally. Mm-hmm. So he asked me if I want a female. I said, no, I don't feel comfortable, because it was gossiping, cops, we gossip in the unit. Mm-hmm. So he said, look, if you have an issue with me helping you, and he didn't even know I was sexually assaulted. That's the thing. But he said, if you have an issue, let me know, and I can bring my wife in here or something like that. Mm-hmm. We can work on this. And I just bawled, and I told him everything. And it was just, when you have somebody who's spiritual, who understands, and you pray for somebody, and they have this connection with you, with your first time really sitting down and knowing, this person's here to help you. Like, you can tell. And that's what I got from him. I had an awesome vibe from him. They still reach out to me and like, this is my family, But it was just that vibe. It was just that he made me comfortable. And I don't know how it happened, but it happened.
And so how long after your encounter mm-hmm. Did this guy come into your space and offered you this help?
I think it's been like every day, every week he checks on me. Like, it's all the time. He makes sure I'm okay.
So when was the first time he came to meet you and said all of those things to you, and you actually sat with him and told him your story? How long after your assault did he offer this to you?
You know what? My assault happened, and when I first came in, so about 2002. Mm-hmm. I did not really get help until 2009.
Whoa.
7 years later. And it's sad to say, but I was drinking and partying the whole time. Think about 7 years of partying, and not my 20s. I don't even know what happened to him. But he sat down with me, and the reason why I was struggling too, because my sister was murdered. So I was going through that, and then she had got raped, and dealt with that as well. So it was a lot. And understand, this wasn't my first sexual assault. That's the thing you have to remember. It happened to me, again, but it wasn't, that story brings triggers. I want to cry. But it happened to me prior to me going to the military. And then there was another one that happened. So it's a few that happened. But the one that made an impact was the one by my leader. Yeah,
I can only imagine. But it seemed like the sergeant that gave you the help and sat and listened to you, and you felt protected, you felt shunned, you felt like he had your best interest at heart. He gave mm-hmm. you hope that day. And there's nothing to me like someone giving somebody hope. Mm-hmm. Because when you feel hopeless, you just feel alone. You feel like you're isolated. You feel like no one understands you. And I know that feeling when I was going through my own PTSD from being deployed in combat. I came back and I knew what was happening, but I couldn't tell nobody. I isolated myself, but it wasn't until someone heard me and I was mm-hmm. able to tell my story. And I wasn't feeling like I was alone and hopeless anymore, that I was able to pull myself up. And I see that's what happened to you,
Yes.
Lakeydra, that now you've revealed an extra layer to your story that's important. And I appreciate the fact that, there's certain things that you just can't tap into right now. I get that. But to know that you've had multiple assaults, and it was that one that this guy saw you and felt as though he could help you amongst all the other things that you've encountered. And I think that's huge.
Yes.
Because your life could have totally have been a different story right now than what it is. Because you're impacting the world with your story right now. And you're empowering other people by saying, I've had challenges. I've had these encounters, but I'm still here. And I think that's what we all should do as women veterans, by uplifting each other. Not destroying each other and leaving each other out here high and dry, but being there to just listen and just be there to support one another. So let's talk about for a minute your suicide attempt. I think that's a big part of your story, because now that you've revealed you'd had other encounters, now that makes it even more serious why you felt you wanted to take your life. So can we talk about that day where you felt that was the day you were going to take yourself out?
Yeah. So I remember that day I was working, and I had just talked to my youngest son and took him off to school. And, it was just like a gloomy day. Like, I just didn't know how to, it was just like I was in a cloud, just walking around like a zombie. Like, I didn't know, I couldn't feel anything. I didn't have any emotions. It was just like, I dropped him off. I was like, okay, whatever. Like, I just felt different. I go home later that day. I didn't pick him up. I go home during lunchtime and I get a gun and I'm like, I'm done. I can't. And it was just like that. My ex-husband was in the back and he was, sleeping or dozing off. So I didn't think that he would wake up in time. So I grabbed his gun and I go in the living room area. And there's like another room you go into the living room, but I was walking on my way there and I sat in the living room and I just thought, and I said, God, just take me. Like, I can't do this. I can't face anything. And it again, when you lose a sibling, that just triggered everything. So I just thought about so many things, and it wasn't, I had the feeling of depression. Like, I want to hurt myself, but I was like, oh, I'm silly, because I used to be the girl. And I have to say this, I used to be the girl. We had a suicide attempt or suicide in my first base. I was a girl that said, oh, people who commit suicide are weak. That was me. I had that mindset that was only for weak people. So I was like, I can't commit suicide because I'm not weak. And then I got to a vulnerable place and I'm like, you know what? I need help, but I'm not going to reach out to anybody because I don't want to seem weak. So I might as well take my own life. So when that happened, I just had the gun to my head and I cocked it back and I was ready. And he came in there and he just jumped me. It was like nothing was said. It was like he jumped on top of me. The gun flew and then I was on the ground. And he was like, what are you doing? And then I just started bawling. And I was like, I can't do it. After he took the gun away, we had a long conversation. And the next day, that's when the officer he's an officer, but came and talked to me because they knew I was going through something when I returned to law enforcement. That's where I was working. They knew something was off. So they came and talked to me and asked me, is everything okay at home or whatever? And I explained everything was fine. And then that's when the leader came in and sat down and talked to me. And so that's when everything had came out.
And so what was your ex-husband's thought in that moment when he saw, because I'm sure that had to impact his life too. And again, the story isn't about him, but this is to show that our choices do impact other people within our circle. So how do you think that, what was he thinking in that moment? Because anything could have happened. He could have jumped on top of you and the gun could have gone off. He could have gotten hurt. You could have gotten hurt. What was he thinking about in that moment? And did you guys talk about it afterwards?
So we talked about it. Reason why he became an ex-husband, at the time we were together, reason why he became an ex-husband, because he wasn't willing to help. And it was like, oh, you're crazy, So during that moment, he did kind of help me. He was like, Keydra, you have more to live for, all this, he motivated me for at least probably a good couple weeks. Then he started calling me crazy. And that's the problem. We couldn't get past it. Like, he wasn't helping me. But yeah, it was we talked about it. We still talk. Actually, we talked about it because we have a child together. So we talked about it again. But he understands now because I explained to him how I was feeling. And then he has friends that have been suicidal. So now he has empathy. He didn't have empathy at that time. He didn't understand. Mm-hmm. So it's just, you know, we talk about it, but at that moment, I felt so stupid. You know, I felt like I just couldn't, I don't know. It was a strong hold on you, you know, like you just don't want to be here. Like I'm the dumbest person. Nobody ever is going to love me. I don't even love myself. Why am I here? You know? So it was just having him, you know, kind of say things to me to help me, but then also that leader that came in and stepped in that helped me. So, and we still talk about it. He understands a little bit more, but at that moment, I didn't need to hear what he had. I didn't need to hear the negativity. I needed to hear, you know, continuous motivation.
Yeah. And then to have your child, you know, thank God your child wasn't in the home at that mm-hmm. time either. But to know that, like you said, I think your word was, you was doing this as a selfish act. You wasn't thinking
yes.
of your child in the middle of all this. How did that affect you after the fact? Knowing that you were really going to do this act and it was going to affect your child and your child was going to be motherless. How did that affect you knowing that?
Ooh, it didn't. I think it hit me probably a few months after the incident happened mm-hmm. because I was still down and I'm like, I think he'll be better without me than with me because I'm torn. I can't love him. It's like you can't love your child because you don't love yourself. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it was just like I was torn. I was confused on how I was, you know, gonna take care of him. But then later I realized like I lost my father at a young age. Mm-hmm. My mother wasn't really there, so I could not keep on having that generation of, you know, no parents there. Like I had to step in and take care of him. So I think that's when I began the work of self-love, taking care of myself and then actually learning how to love him and take care of him. And it's been a struggle.
Yeah. Yeah.
But but that's all it is.
Yeah. We all have our struggles. We all have mm-hmm. our challenges, but your story is truly one of survival. I mean, you obviously are and you are still trying to figure out how to cope and deal with, you know, your assault. You survived the suicide attempt, and you're here telling your story, not just to me, but on multiple platforms that I see you on. So where did this bravery come from? Did it come all of a sudden? I know you said there was a 7-year window in between. You were partying and trying to figure things out and feeling isolated and alone and hopeless. Where did this bravery come from?
It was sudden. I got to my first assignment as a recruiter in 2012. And I seen a girl who went through the same thing I was going through. And I saw her and she was telling some of her story, but you could tell there was more to it that was going on. And I felt like I need to share mine so she could connect with me. Like there had to be a connection. Mm-hmm. And I think when that happened and I saw how much she improved and that she didn't commit suicide and that she actually has a great life now because I shared my story, I think that's what made me come out and say, you know what, if I can help her, I'm sure there's more people I can help. And then the more I've just talked to more people and mostly young women, even some of the women that I put in the Air Force, it's just amazing how we still connect. But I did not openly go out on a platform probably till 2018, 2019 when I started, because I was still ashamed, like, oh, I shared my story and I could not get through a story without crying because those triggers came back. But I was ashamed because I was like, well, what will people think of me? Will they think I'm weak for saying anything? Will they call me, you know, a victim or, you know, make me feel like I'm a victim? You know, it was just a lot of things. I didn't understand the difference between victim and survivor. And that, I mean, it's silly to say, but I really didn't understand it. But yes, I felt like I needed to share my story and it actually helped me heal. That was another thing. It helped me heal to share my story. But yes, I just been going for it and talking to people, and so many people reached out to me, and it's amazing. The things that we go through, like your test can always be your testimony, and you don't understand how many lives you can touch. So I keep on doing it. And I don't know, I guess a God gift that I never had, a purpose that I never understood. Yeah. Sometimes out of your pain comes your purpose.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So I just keep on fighting. Right. So I keep on fighting.
Yeah, out of your pain, becomes your purpose. I think you should get a T-shirt that says that. Lakeydra, out of my pain became my purpose, because
Right.
sometimes your story will help somebody else. And you talked about having to understand victim and being a survivor. What's your definition of them now? Because you were a victim and now you're a survivor. So how would you describe the differences in those two terms now?
So when I say victim, I never wanted to heal from it. And I think when you become a survivor, you heal. You're in the healing process. Like, you went through it, you've been through it, and look, you overcame it. You know what I'm saying? Even though you don't overcame everything, but you're like, you know what? I'm here. I'm strong. I'm not going to let that person hold me down. That's when I became a survivor. When I said, you know what, that what he did is not going to impact my life. And I know some people may look at like, but that's how I put it. Like, I'm never going to have anybody take my power away again. Like, I'm not. And even as a survivor, you still go through those issues. You still are hurting. You're still bothered by certain things. But as long as you're willing to go through it and you're not going to let people keep you at a low place, I think you become a survivor when you start working on healing and progressing yourself. And I don't know if that's the right term, but that's how I see it.
No, it's all about you and what you have to, do in order to cope and go through your own, strategies to help you out. And I think that's beautiful. I think because you no longer can consider yourself victimized, right? Because when you're victimized, then you're saying, I'm allowing myself to be a victim. But if I'm a survivor, I'm no longer a victim of what I had to go through and did go through. So I love how you explain that to me. I think it makes sense. And so you're still on active duty, Lakeydra. So how has this impacted your duty as being on, you're still wearing the uniform. You still go to work every day. You're still on orders for the military. So how has this impacted your service every day?
It really hasn't. Or let me take that back. I will say in the beginning it did, because if you would have told somebody you were feeling, you just weren't mentally, just at your best, you would have got discharged. Okay. So I think that's why I waited so long to say anything. That's another reason. But now it seems like we're getting a lot of help, MVETs, like a lot of you guys are coming in and pouring into the military more. And we're seeing that, but we didn't have that before. So I think that, it's kind of affected me where I still have to be careful what I say and what I do, but I still have a voice. Like, it's okay to have a voice. But we have the stigma. We still have the stigma. If you are suicidal, if you have a sexual assault, they're going to still kick you out. We still have that stigma. It's me being active duty trying to break that stigma. Like, you can seek help and still serve. And that's what I'm trying to get people to understand with my story.
I think that's huge because, when I was on active duty suffering with PTSD, I didn't tell anybody. I waited until I knew that I was going to retire. I knew when my retirement date was. I knew I had retirement orders before I even said anything. So having to live that life of hopelessness and just going through, that stigma of, are they going to think I'm a weak officer? Are they going to think that, I'm not a good nurse? I went through that. So I totally get it that, being on active duty, I'm sure you feel that same kind of pressure to say, I want help, but I don't want to be stigmatized and I don't want to be labeled. So I'm glad that you're out here letting, active duty members know that you still can get the help that you deserve and not have to wait until you get out or wait until something else happens. And I think that's the important message we as women veterans need to tell each other. The time is now to get the help that you deserve and not wait. So what message would you tell someone if you encountered a female today and she, exhibited some symptoms that you were thinking, man, I think this girl has had some issues, or maybe she's had a military sexual assault. What would you do? Walk me through what you would do for that female veteran.
So my first thing is I would be her mentor. Like, I will help her through the process, and we'll go to counseling together. I will do those things to make sure she's not alone. Also, the thing about it, we have good we have good resources it depends on where you're assigned, but I will tell her to continue seeking help, because a lot of the resources that we have are not good on base. So I tell people to go off base, certainly when it's military sexual trauma. So I will always help her through that step. Like, let's find you a counselor. If that person doesn't work, let's keep on finding you somebody until you find some help. I will also make sure she does things that she loves, because I think when you are dealing with so much, you forget how to love the things that you once did, and sometimes it can be easily going for a walk. Like, you have to be that shoulder for that person, and just to listen. The biggest thing, we need to listen to each other. So it's just all those variety of things, but I will not leave her side. I have to stay there. And if I can't do those things, at least find another woman, find out her triggers, and, find another woman to help her and assist her in ways I can't. So.
And why do you think women veterans should do that for each other? Why do you think that's important?
Because it's a connection that we have, women to women. We have a connection that men don't understand. Emotional connection, those things. I think a woman, she understands you. She understands what you go through, because, for women, we're nurturing. We want that. We have that motherly instinct. So I just think that women we understand each other a little bit more than anybody else does. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
I totally agree. And I know that every woman veteran story is going to be different. Like, your story is not going to mimic someone else's story. But in all of that, do you think there's some similarities that's through that thread of military sexual assault? Do you think there's some things that you can say mostly or more often than not some women go through, since you've encountered other stories before?
Oh, wow. I think everybody says the same thing. Like, their leadership didn't have their back. That's the first thing I hear. The second thing that's most common is, I cannot find the proper help. And I hear that a lot, whether they went through a therapist. It seems like a woman who has had military sexual trauma, she does better with a woman who's been through the same thing than an actual psychologist or anybody who doesn't. It's different, but everybody's story is the same. No leadership helped them, and it's still, to this day, it's still happening. Or, no help, or they just don't know how to deal with certain things. So it's all this everything's the same. And then we don't understand the triggers of PTSD. That's something else that I still have an issue with. Like, it affects me mentally. Like, some things I get nervous. I'm like, did I say that? Why did I say that? I get anxious, and, it's so trying to figure out what can we do to help each other and understand the triggers.
I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about the relatability of women to women, right? We particularly if we know each other, share each other's story. And
right.
Because you can feel that compassion, right? You can feel that support if there's something relatable. And even if it's relatable on the issue of military sexual trauma, it may be that woman feeling like, I can now offload because I know that Lakeydra understands me. Oh, I can now tell about my PTSD because Sharisa has told about her PTSD. So I do believe having to be relatable in our circumstances and our situation does allow us as women to open up more and feel like we're supported more. Do you agree?
Yes, I definitely agree. That's what we have to do. We have to come together a little bit more. We have to be relatable, and we have to be open and transparent to share our stories with each other. And that's the thing. Don't sit in fear, but be open to help the other person out, So
let's talk about the aftermath of Vanessa's story. I know that story touched my heart. I know last week was the memorial service. I think every female veteran that has a heart and has compassion had to, feel a certain kind of way about what happened to her. How has her story, being that it was relatable, military sexual trauma, how would you say that her story and what happened to her and the things that you've heard about her story has impacted your life?
It has impacted on multiple ways because we were protested. The recruiting offices, recruiting stations were protested. So we couldn't wear uniforms to our recruiting stations. We had to wear civilian clothes.
Wow.
So it impacted us differently. Where some of our lives were threatened, some of our offices were damaged, and it's just not my area. It's all over. We felt it, but I was not angry at why they did it. I wasn't. I was, glad, because now we have a voice. You know what I mean? It's not more hiding. No, don't hide behind it. Don't hide behind leadership. Like, everybody needs to see, like, this is the issue that we have. We need to fix it. So I think her story brought more eyes to the military. Like, what are you guys doing to fix this? Don't cover it up. You know, this is sad how it happened, but it let me reach out to more people and talk to them and say, hey, I'm here for you. I've seen on Instagram, I had 25 different shares and 25 different posts, and probably over, I think, 1,300 views and comments and stuff about it. And all these women came up, and this woman came up for me from 76, said she got sexual assault at 76. So her story made people have a voice. Like, everybody's talking about it now. It's sad that it happened, but it made me realize there's some more we have to fix, and we can't cover it up anymore.
So what types of conversations were you guys having in your recruiting office? I mean, knowing that there was, riots going on, people, protesting the recruiting stations. What kind of conversations were you guys having in your office? I mean, because I'm sure there's male recruits in your department, and I'm sure by now they would have known parts of your story. So what types of conversations were being had in your office?
We talked a lot about understanding, sometimes, and it starts with little things, and I told them, I said, sometimes things you say you think are not gonna, are not gonna trigger certain things. Like, you don't know what a person goes through. So never make jokes about a woman or say anything belittling. Because sometimes being law enforcement, guys say these crazy jokes, and it's very disrespectful, but it's just how, I guess they put it as how men talk, which it shouldn't happen like that. But I just tell them, hey, just be respectful of, different women, be respectful of them. When it came to Vanessa, I told them, our views, you have to understand what military sexual trauma is. And I try to break it down to them, what it is and what can we do to do better. If you have a new recruitee that goes through that same thing or comes back and needs somebody to talk to, find the proper resources. So we talk about resources that we have available for them and those things, just to keep us connected to what's going on. But we had good conversations about how they feel about it. As males, what would you do if a female came to you and asked you or told you that, hey, I've been assaulted sexually. How do you, help her out? And then as well, like, if somebody's uncomfortable with you, bringing another female in or, making sure they're okay in those different situations. So it was a good talk. And actually, we did lose a few female recruitees because of this, because they lost trust and faith in the military. And I was okay with it. I'm not upset. But it's impacted us as well.
And so I know quite a few times we get the question or the comment that military sexual trauma is just not about women, right? Have you ever encountered a male coming to you and saying that they've been assaulted? Or, because again, you're out here and you, since 2018, been sharing your stories, and I'm sure it hasn't all been female sharing their stories.
Right.
You encountered a male actually sharing their stories?
Yes. And actually, I responded to a incident where a male was sexually assaulted, where a male was raped. And I did not know that was real. So as a cop, I'm going and I'm getting dispatched, and I go there and I am going crazy because it brought back memories, and it was after my assault happened, probably a few years after mine. So seeing that, I was like, oh my God, I didn't know how to respond to it. So they had to get me out of there. But then later on, I saw it again. And then I've heard about, on Veterans Council Veterans, we had a guy who shared his story too. But the other guys that I dealt with as a cop, they weren't ready to share their story. They would say, oh, I'm just been drinking, or maybe just an accident, or maybe I led him on. Those are the words I kept on hearing. I'm like, why does every male have to say, maybe I've led him on? Like, it's okay to say, hey, I'm a victim of sexual assault by another male or whoever did it. It's okay to say that. But I heard a few stories, and it's scary to me to see men go through it. And I know women get through it, it's tough, but for men to go through it, it just did something different to me. Like, it hurt my heart for anybody to go through it, but just a male who can't face it, I think that killed me more than anything. And that more suicides come from, I've seen a few male suicides because of that. And one was like a couple months ago, he killed himself. So it hurts me because they just don't know how to tell another male, hey, I got sexual assaulted by another male, because now they're going to be labeled,
Mm-hmm.
Whew, yeah. So that one, yes, I have heard stories, and it's sad. And I've tried to reach out to them, and I think more males coming forth, I think that's going to help as well.
Yeah. And I just wanted to make sure, through the conversation, that we just make sure everyone knows we're just not saying it's all women, both
Correct.
men and women are affected by military sexual trauma. And so, again, you're here in your bubbly spirit. Again, I see you on social media and you're doing so well. Tell us about your coping strategies, what you've been doing to get you in the spirit that you're in right now, because again, if we look on the outside, we would say there's nothing wrong with Lakeydra. What is she talking about? So how and what was your road to get here? Tell us about that.
I had to, number one, I had to accept what happened. And I don't think I accepted, and I had to accept that it wasn't my fault. And I think once I accepted that it wasn't my fault, I started healing. And it's sad, 16 years later, I finally accepted that it wasn't my fault. And when I healed from that, it was said, okay, you got to do the work. What can we do? Because I don't want to end up, hurting myself again. I don't want to have these feelings. So I started talking to other women who have been in the same situation I have been in, and they've helped me. And it's social media works. And I've never met these women, but social media, we made contact that way. I'm very spiritual. So there are times I sit back and I wake up every morning. I'm like, I'm here. I'm here for a reason. My purpose is here. I'm up, and I'm grateful for every morning I wake up, kiss my sons. I hug, call my loved ones. Are you okay? I also take time to read because I like reading. I do things that I like to do. And on top of that, I always like blogging and doing those things, but I understand my boundaries. When I get to that point where I'm feeling off, what can I do? What can I understand your coping mechanism, understanding all those things. And then self-love. I had to start loving myself. Look in the mirror saying, it's okay. It happened to you, but you survived it. Now go help those other women, So those are some things I do. Meditation's key, yoga, all those things, walking when I need to. Just doing things to make me feel good and make me feel alive. I think that's helped me a lot.
And so would you say that you have healed, or are you healing?
Whew, I can never say I healed. I can't say that. I say I'm healing. Because I still have things that are still tender. And I don't know I don't know necessarily if that's ever going to go away. And that's my fear. Like,
that's a good word there. What do you mean tender?
It's still tender. Like, when I talk about those issues, I still have flashbacks. I still have that pain. Like, it still bothers me. And there are times where I feel like, did I do something? You go back to it and it's like, did I do something to cause this to happen? So I feel like I have to 100% get over that, because there are times, and now understand things happened before I got in the military, and I see these people on a regular. So now you have to heal from, not on top of the military sexual trauma, but past, other trauma that you're dealing with. So when I say tender, is just seeing those people and you're still angry and you want to hurt them. So I have to get out of that angry place and say, be forgiving. I have to forgive them. And that's why it's still tender, because I don't think I 100% forgive them. I think I did 80%, but I need to forgive to move on. So once I get that forgiveness down, then I'll be good.
And so do you think you're whole from healing from military sexual trauma and now trying to find a way to heal from the previous incidents before the military? Do you feel like you are whole, or you're almost there?
I still always feel I'm almost there. I always feel
like for you?
Being whole is where I feel like where it doesn't affect me like it does, like where I'm not angry, where I'm not wanting to just, if I see the people prior to the military, if I ever see this guy again, where I don't want to go bash their head in. You know what I mean? I'm still going to feel the anger, but I need to get it under control if I ever come around them. Like, I have to get myself in check. But I'm there. I'm almost there. But I have to be honest. And at first I'm happy you asked that question, because at first I was teaching to people and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm whole and I'm healed. And I thought about it, I said, am I really? Like, am I 100% really? And I know I'm not, because I know that I haven't been able to love my oldest son like I should, even to this day, because I'm not healed. That's sad to say, but it's true. I'm not able to love my children because I haven't fully loved myself. Yep.
Wow. I mean, those are your babies.
Yeah.
Those are your heart. That's your heart. And
yeah,
for you to admit that openly and to know that, what can you do about that, Lakeydra? How can you move past that? How can you make that better, if at all?
Yeah, I know I can, because I have hope. And we forget we have hope. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen.
You keep working it.
I know. It's something I'm not willing to let go of. Like, I have to, every day I have to wake up and say, I'm going to get better. I'm going to do what it takes. I'm going to fight. And that's the thing, when you've hated yourself for so long, you got to start fighting. My kids don't deserve that. And they didn't do that to me. They should not have to suffer. So now it's all about fighting and being the mom I'm supposed to be for them. That's the biggest thing.
You're going to get there. I think
I am.
There.
I am.
Yeah. And each day you'll get stronger. Each day you'll get wiser. I think that's why I so love the Serenity Prayer. And I know you're.
Yes.
And I mean, I know a lot of people use the Serenity Prayer for a little bit of everything. I know it's given me a lot of hope. But I think the important thing in the Serenity Prayer is when we have to just, surrender to things we can't change, have the courage to change the things that we can't, and just understand the difference between the two.
Yes.
Have the wisdom to know the difference between the two. And I do believe you know the difference between the two, and that you're courageous enough to be able to do what it takes in order for you to love your sons like you want to love your sons. And it's in your heart. So it's not like you don't have it in you. You got work to do, and you know that you're going to continue the work, and you're going to continue to aspire to love them the way that you want to love them. And I think there's nothing more encouraging than to see us as women fight for that.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And when I say that, it's also with PTSD, you have those moments where you're just in the bed and you don't want to do anything. And that's the time that, they're like, Mommy, let's do this. And you're snapping at them. You're going off on them. You're trying to control your emotions, but everything. But I'm so happy that you asked me these questions, because it made me dig deep. I didn't want to cry. But thank you. But thank you so much. It helps, you understand, and it helps a lot. So I'm so happy with what you're doing.
Oh, you're so sweet. I appreciate that. Well, we're not done yet, because I love my rapid fire questions, and rapid fire. And so this is an opportunity for you to just think off the cuff. Again, this is meant to be, deep. We just had a really deep conversation. So this is a way to kind of lighten it up before we finish the rest of the show. And so this is, again, the favorite part that most viewers are always talking about. Like, where do you get these rapid fire statements from? I'm like, I don't know. I just think of things as my guests are talking about it, and I just throw it at them and see what happens. And so, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. My life without the military would have been
turmoil.
No one said that. Why turmoil?
Because I didn't, I was still young, and I would have been running around and, just trying to find myself. So, I just would have not healed through some certain things, but I think I would have ran around and been crazy.
So you got some structure in the military is what you're saying.
Yeah. It structured me.
You got some discipline, right?
Got some discipline.
Okay. My concern about the state of military sexual trauma in the military is
that it's not discussed enough. As in active duty, it's not discussed a lot. And it seems like a checkbox. We have these 15, 20 minutes of briefings, or these, computer-based training, and that's it. we don't never really talk about it. So I think that's, yeah.
And what would you do differently about that?
Ooh, I think we should get a survivor team out. I think we should get military sexual trauma team to go out to different bases and go out to different units and talk to them about it and help them understand sexual trauma.
I'm surprised that there's nothing like that on active duty right now, considering, you know, that the rise of military sexual trauma across the military.
No, now you have your SART and all those people, but it's no. It's different because these people, they don't understand what it is to be. So I think more survivors need to do it, need to come out.
The biggest obstacle I'm overcoming is
loving myself. Yeah, that's the one.
Okay.
Are these supposed to be fun?
We're getting there. Hold tight.
I'm scared.
Women veterans should
support each other. Yes.
And what does that support look like?
Just reaching out to each other more. We should do mentoring. We should, do more programs like these. Like, I love this program. We should have, and let it be known. Like, we should, keep on doing these type of programs.
Empowering others by telling your story means
that I've hopefully helped them heal and help them understand. Yeah.
My strength to speak out comes from
me wanting to heal and the love of my children. Yeah. Yeah. I like that one.
3 things that you are happy about.
Oh man, life, new beginnings, if that makes sense, new beginnings, and my boys, my babies, like those are 3. Yeah. So when I say life is just waking up every day, knowing that I didn't do that. And new beginnings is every day you wake up is a new, fresh start to do something great and impactful in your life. And then my boys that give me hope. So, yeah.
I love it. Last question. Hope is?
Truly believing that you can overcome anything. Yeah.
I love it. So you got through it? What are you talking about?
I was like, oh gosh.
You so got through it, and I so appreciate your story, Lakeydra. Like I said in the beginning, and we've been talking on social media, your story is impactful. It's definitely going to change the lives of many, many women and also men, the more you tell your story. And I hope you felt it in your heart that you were able to tell it authentically here today, and that you felt that, you were vulnerable, but you were heard. And that's important to me, to allow you and other women veterans, when they come to the table, to know that I hear you. If no one else does, that I hear you. And if there's anything I can do to support you, just know that I'm here. If there's anything that AMVETS can do to support you, I'm here. Behind me is my banner for my nonprofit, but the word hope is in the middle of it. So that's why I kept emphasizing hope to you, because I want you to know that there is hope out here. And for someone who felt hopeless at many times of my life, I know and I can testify that with hope comes life, comes happiness, comes joy. And I'm very glad that your ex-husband jumped on you when you were feeling hopeless and you did not take your life, because you wouldn't have been able today to talk to me. So I appreciate it. Before we go, I want you to be able to give your final message to the viewers, and then finish with letting the viewers know where you are, your social media handles. If you're doing anything in the community, webinars, speeches, you let them know where you are. But first, give us your final message of encouragement, motivation, and inspiration.
So I will tell everyone to never, ever give up, regardless of any situation you've been through. Don't worry. Don't focus on the past. You're going to get through it. There's so much out here. You have purpose. You're here for a reason. So never let anybody steal that from you. and always learn how to forgive and learn how to love yourself. Remember to love yourself. But that's basically it on that one. I will honestly say, I've been on different platforms, Veterans Counseling Veterans. I've done several things for them. Brianna Consulting, she's a woman out of Atlanta. I do things with them, talking about mental health and resiliency. But I'm just getting in the groove of things. I have several people who have reached out, asked me to speak. So I'm very excited for that and kind of nervous. But you can find me, Lakeydra Houston, on LinkedIn. And also I'm on Instagram. It's mindful_key, Key. And I always, I have a brand now that's called Key Fit. Key Fit is knowledge, empowerment, unity. So it's, and the unity is with the Y, YOUNITY. And I started this to help women, for us to come together, not just women, but everybody to come together. We're going to give you the knowledge that you need to fight through whatever you're going through, whether we need to mentor you, help you, love you, whatever. We're going to be that support system, and we're going to empower you to get through it. And unity, it always starts with you, and we're just going to surround you with love. So I love that. Key Fit. It keeps me going. But yes, you can find me on those platforms. And I'm here. I'm ready to share my story. So I'm excited for what's to come in the future. Definitely excited.
I see a bright shining star right here. So I know you're almost 2 years out from retiring, right? So what are your thoughts right now? And I'm sure it'll change the closer you get closer to retirement. But what are your thoughts right now about retiring, and how are you preparing for transitioning?
Oh, I've reached out to several companies, but right now I'm ready. I'm ready to retire. I'm ready to start a new chapter. My voice can be heard in the military, but I feel like outside people need to hear. People need to hear it more. But I'm ready to keep on helping others. That's what I'm excited about. I want to help others. I want to keep on doing it. And I feel like in the uniform, I'm not able to do as much as I want to. But I'm ready to go out there, retire, and just be in the community. Hopefully go out there and see you. But I'm ready to go out there and network with some beautiful women. I'm so excited to just start a new chapter in my life. Like, I'm ready. It's time.
And so with that being said, are you already starting to transition and preparing for transitioning, or you still got a lot of military duties to complete?
So I still have been working on my transitioning. I have a transitioning mentor right now that I'm going through, as well as doing, transitioning Zooms and those things. So yes, I've been working on transitioning, resume writing, all those things, trying to learn how it is to be out this uniform. So I'm ready. I'm an individual outside the uniform, and I can't lose my identity.
Yeah.
So I'm excited though. I'm excited for it.
Well, thank you so much again for sharing your story today. Lakeydra, I knew you and I were going to connect, and I knew this conversation was going to go on and on and on. And I can speak for myself that you've made me feel inspired and motivated and encouraged. And I'm sure our viewers felt the same thing. So I appreciate you so much.
Thank you.
I know we hit some tender spots. That's one of your words, but you were able to get through that, and we were able to get through that together. And I hope that you felt that in those moments where, it was tender and it's a little, little emotional and vulnerable, but our stories come with many different layers, and some are deeper than others. And we got to be able to work through that. And I think that's the resilience that we have as women veterans. That's one of the attributes that we have, to be able to power through anything. And you powered through this interview, and I'm so proud of you, and I'm so thankful for you for being here. And to all the viewers here, thanks for being here and supporting Lakeydra Houston and listening to her story. If you want to be on Who's at the Table, reach out to me at cjackson@amvets.org. Until next time, be blessed, be safe. Thank you all so much. Good night, Lakeydra. Have a good one. Thank you so much.
You too. Bye-bye.
Have a blessed one. Bye.